Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Pearl, and I am Program Specialist with AARP ElderWatch. Thank you so much for joining us today and participating in our webinar on financial myths debunked. This is an interactive webinar, so in the chat box, feel free to ask your questions, and I will answer them at the end of the half hour. AARP ElderWatch works to fight financial exploitation of older Coloradans through education and outreach, data collection, and by providing resources about scam prevention and financial security. AARP ElderWatch also has a volunteer staffed helpline where you can report scams, financial exploitation, or receive peer-to-peer financial counseling. Dial 1-800-222-4444, option 2, to be connected to a trained volunteer. And that number is listed also at the bottom of this slide. Now let's get into these financial myths. Real quick today, please mute your phone line until the end. We should have come in and been muted automatically, but if you're having issues with that, it's going to be that little microphone looking icon. And then to show that it's muted, it has a / through it. Type questions in the chat and I'll answer them at the end. And then lastly, this presentation will be recorded. It's recording right now and it'll be posted to YouTube. You can find it on AARP Colorado's YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with friends, family, neighbors, random person you meet on the street. It's good information. Want to get it out there, so feel free to share. And now to the myths. Financial myth number 1. Carrying credit card balances will boost your credit score. I think this is probably one of the most common myths, is that having a balance is a sign that you're using your credit card often. However, credit card companies actually don't measure how often you're using your credit card based on whether or not there's a balance. They measure it through credit utilization, which is a percentage of how often you're actually using your card. Most credit cards say that your credit utilization should be at about 30%. And if you're going over 30%, that could be a sign of actually overuse of your credit card. So it should be, 30% of whatever your maximum spend limit is. And payment history is actually the most important factor in credit scoring. So a balance is not going to make a difference. With that, it actually could affect your credit score negatively because of looking at payment history. And so if you're leaving a balance every month and not paying that balance off and allowing it to roll over, that can actually impact your credit score negatively. Leaving a balance also means that you might be paying interest to your credit issuer. So instead of, paying off the $15 that's on there, you're going to have to pay $20 with interest in the next month or two. And this isn't everywhere. Some credit cards don't have interest for balances. Most do. And this can cause, if you continue to leave this balance over time, it can cause high interest rates. So you end up paying $30 or $40 for groceries you bought a month ago that were $15. Leaving a high balance, as I said, can also hurt your credit score. So if you're leaving a balance that's, let's say a balance of $15 might be fine. A balance of $200, $300, that might actually be risky, be considered risky to credit issuers. So paying down that balance as much as possible, if you can't pay it completely, is going to be actually the best way to boost your credit score instead of carrying a balance over. But try to pay those balances every month. You don't want those added interest charges. Financial myth number 2, you only have one credit score. So a lot of people think that you only have one credit score. It's that FICO credit score that shows up on whatever banking app that you might use, or it shows up when you just go ahead and check your credit score. But actually, there are 3 versions of every credit score because they're calculated from the 3 major credit bureau reports. So TransUnion might have one score, whereas Equifax and Experian might have 2 different scores. And that means that there's over 1,000 different credit scores in use today because they're doing 3 versions of every credit score. And there's many, many different models that credit scores can be run through. Luckily, you really only need to track one credit score to determine where your credit stands and monitor it over time. Because that's really what a credit score is telling you, is where your credit stands and what its current standing is. Good credit, right, the higher score is going to be seen as your less of a risk to lenders. Credit that is a little lower is going to be seen as you're more of a risk to lenders. And credit scores fluctuate like crazy. A lot of times it's not necessarily, you're like, why did my credit score go down? And there's not really a reason you can trace. Sometimes you can trace that reason if you're doing a hard pull of your credit report, or if you're opening, a new line of credit, that's going to tank your score a little bit, but then it should bounce back up. There are some differences that exist depending on the type of model that each credit score is run through. So you might get a FICO credit score that is different than a credit score that's run through TransUnion. I would just pick one and then track it. See, how that number moves based on what you're doing, what you're spending. Credit utilization is another thing that can make your credit score go down a bit. But the credit scores prospective lenders see are actually different than the ones you are presented with. So really, this is just meant to be kind of a benchmark of where your credit is, and then kind of figure out how exactly those can be improved over time. Financial myth number 3, minimum payments on credit cards are fine. So people think that just keeping a minimum payment, just paying that minimum every single month is going to be okay. And it can be okay for, short-term emergencies. But in the long term, you see an increase in interest, and it can make it hard to pay down large amounts of debt, even small amounts of debt. Minimum payments keep your account in good standing. So if you're, paying that minimum payment every single month, it keeps your account in good standing, and it can help you to avoid late fees, but it does not help with reducing credit card debt. And interest charges actually may go up over time. So this is something that you're going to want to evaluate based on your credit card, but paying those minimum payments and not the full balance can hurt your credit score and can make it very difficult in the long run to pay down amounts of debt. Number 4, I don't earn enough to save. You do earn enough to save. Everyone earns enough to save. That's pretty general, but because not everyone does. Everyone has a differing financial situation. But there's oftentimes easy ways to put away a small amount of money, no matter what financial situation, and allow for it to grow over time. So the first question you want to ask is, if you think I don't earn enough to save, is when are you putting that money away? If you wait till the end of the month to put that money away, if you say, oh, I'm just going to cover, all of my expenses for the month, and then whatever's left over, I'll throw in savings, that's probably not going to be the most efficient way to save your money. If you're saying at the beginning of the month, okay, this is how much money I have, X amount is going for expenses, Y amount is going to go into savings, maybe a little bit of Y is going for extra fun stuff. Some people like to, put a little bit of money out for going out to eat or whatever fun activities, and then the rest is going to go into savings. That's going to be a lot more of an effective way to save your money. Setting savings goals is very important as well. So some people like to set them for each week. Each week I'm going to save $20, for example. I personally like to set them per month. So I want to say, okay, at the end of this month, I want $500 saved up. Writing that down and keeping a tab on it helps immensely in actually making sure that $500 gets into my savings account at the end of the month. And then some people do it in, 3 months. Over the next 3 months, I want to save $1,000. And setting those goals is really important because there's a tangible end. And that can help make sure that that money is actually going into the account that you want it to go into. Another option is set up auto deposit for some of your earnings each month to get put directly into savings right away. So depending on who your employer is, you can a lot of times go in and make a certain percent of your check go to a different bank account than your check would normally go to. So for example, if you want, half of your check to go to savings, half of your check to go to checking, a lot of times there's ways to do that. You can also set it up through the bank where $400 gets automatically withdrawn, or whatever the amount is gets automatically withdrawn each month from checking and then goes into savings or whatever account you like. But you can't save if it's all spent. So really being proactive about these savings goals is going to help you save the most amount of money in the long run. Myth number 5, it is too late to invest. It is never too late to invest, no matter what age you are. And it's never too early to get started either. It's actually easier right now than ever to get into the investment game because there's lots of opportunities for what's called micro investments through these apps that are now coming out, these phone apps that are now coming out, and new websites that allow you to take a small amount of money, $5, $10, $15, all the way up to, thousands, and diversify a portfolio in investments. So even if you are older but you are looking to invest, it's pretty easy to get into the market as of right now with all the new technology that's coming out. And I did do a presentation on this a few weeks ago, so if you want to learn more about all the investment tactics specifically, you can go back on our YouTube channel and watch that. But you're going to want to do research on the type of investment platform you want to use and what kind of investments you want. If you are older, you might be looking for a less risky investment that takes less time for, the money to grow. If you're younger, you might be able to keep your money in an investment account for a long time, keep it fairly low risk, and be able to pull out that money in 20, 30 years. But do your research first because there's many different types of ways to invest, and now is a good time to do it. Also consider what you're investing for. Are you investing to pay off a large expense, trying to pay for a child's future education, just a vacation? There's ways that you can put money away into investment accounts as savings, right? And then when you are ready to take that money out, it can be used for whatever purchase you want to make, or paying for future education, large expense down the road. So there are lots of different ways to do it, and it is never too late to get involved, especially now. Financial myth number 6, investing in gold is always safe. So gold is considered by investors to be one of the safest investments because it recovers its value quickly during economic downturn. But like any investment, it's highly volatile, meaning that it's subject to supply and demand factors that will cause the price to change. So one day gold might be, king, right? Thousands of dollars, and you can cash out on the investment and make thousands of dollars, and the next day it might be like 10. The change in gold is it's volatile, and it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. There are also different types of gold to invest in. Some need different protections, so you have to, put them in different physical boxes. So you're going to want to look into, what types of equipment you need to keep your gold properly secured. The main issue with this is that people oftentimes think that investing in gold is going to the gold is never going to lose value. And that is the wrong approach to go, because it's like any other investment where you put the money in, it can either go up or down depending on the market. But beware, because there are also lots of gold investment scams out there. Oftentimes, if people are contacting you saying that they have a great rate on gold and are trying to get you to invest right away, using that tactic of pressuring this deal is going to go away really soon, you're going to lose out on this great opportunity for wealth, that is a huge sign of a scam. If people are, contacting you out of the blue and saying, I have this investment that you can cash in on, and you have not, and it's completely unsolicited, that also is going to be a red flag of a scam. Also, beware that the person that's contacting you to invest in gold is a legitimate seller. A lot of times, folks will pose as legitimate, investors in gold, and then have people hand their money over, and they're not who they say they are, and there's no gold that actually appears. So just beware of investment scams with gold, and if you have more questions about that, either throw them in the chat or feel free to contact us at ElderWatch. Financial myth number 7, my partner manages our money, so I don't need to worry about it. Well, it is wonderful that someone else is managing your money. However, do not leave any important aspects of your life entirely in the hands of someone else, and that includes your money. Yes, they might be the love of your life. They would never, ever, ever, ever do anything to use your money in an incorrect way. However, people do make mistakes, and not talking about finances with partners is one of the leading causes of divorce, right? Financial issues. So it's really, really important to be communicating regularly with your partner about finances, because maybe you hate finances, hate writing checks for bills and managing the accounts and all of that stuff, and that is totally okay. Just check in every once in a while that everything is going smoothly, that your partner doesn't need assistance with anything. Just, check in on the books whenever you can, and sit down and say, I'm not trying to undermine your skills in handling our finances. I just think that it's important that I play a role in my finances as well, because this is a joint thing that we're doing. But even if you're not making those decisions, make sure that you're kept in the loop on what's going on. This also makes it so much easier if something were to unfortunately happen. Then you know where accounts are, how to access them, how to pay bills, and it saves a lot of stress and hardship in the future as well. So while your partner may manage your money and may be okay with that, and you may be okay with them doing that, you definitely do need to worry about it and keep an eye on what's going on. And have an open conversation about why you think it's important that you're a part of this financial process as well. Financial myth number 8, cash is king. So for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, basically forever, people have been using cash as a form of money to receive, buy and receive things that they need. However, as we continue to have development within technology and protections on credit cards and protections through the bank get stronger, cash is going to the wayside in being king. Because the biggest issue with cash is that it's risky. If something goes wrong in a transaction, if something goes wrong in, if you lose your wallet and it's full of hundreds of dollars of cash and that's all your assets for the month, that's gone. It's very hard to get that back. If someone steals from your credit card, very, very unfortunate, but luckily you can call the credit card company and say, hey, someone stole my money, and they will many times eat that cost, whereas in cash, it's just gone forever. In some cases, a discount for using cash does make it the best option. Now, especially, it's a little harder to use cash with the pandemic because of the coin shortage. So you weren't actually getting the amount of change a lot of times that you needed when you were using cash in situations. But sometimes it is better if you're, trying to get a certain discount. But also keeping stacks of cash in your home to save is also risky. This is a fairly popular saving method for people that don't necessarily trust financial institutions. But the issue with it is that if you're just leaving cash underneath your mattress or inside your mattress, as there have been some stories about, that money can't grow. It doesn't earn any interest. It just sits there. It literally just sits there as paper. And putting it away in a savings account or in an investment account can allow that money to actually grow and mature, and you can get a pretty good return sometimes. And the last point is this happens a lot, especially in turbulent times within the economy. People abandon investing for a cash payout. So they'll say, okay, I want to sell all of my investments and then sell out and get all of that cash. And in some cases, this is the smartest idea, but in a lot of cases, the markets bounce back with some time and you can lose more money than you would actually make in getting that cash, in that cash payout. So whenever you're thinking of using cash as opposed to a credit card or debit card, just think through the risks of using cash. Think about how much cash it is. If it's a lower amount, $20, $30, it's going to be less risky than hundreds of dollars in stacks of cash. But there are increasing opportunities for ways to be banked, ways to put your money in a bank. And so if you're interested in learning any more about those, wanting to move away from carrying large stacks of cash. A lot of times people that would get turned away from banks in the past now are able to bank online or through other platforms. And we're happy at ElderWatch to help out with any sort of resources connecting to banking as well. Okay, so we do have some questions in the chat, and I'm going to answer those in just a second. I just wanted to share these resources. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has resources about financial education, and they also have tons of resources on what to do in certain financial situations. Honestly, scrolling through their website and just seeing all the resources that they have might be the best way to go. You can learn a lot just reading that information. The Federal Trade Commission also has a lot of good consumer protection resources, and they also have resources for frauds and scams. AARP has a whole website dedicated to money and savings. There's tons of good information on there as well. Lots of different things about savings, retirement savings specifically, ways to, save the most amount of money, and then information about frauds and scams also. And then the last one is us, AARP ElderWatch, and we have lots of information on our website about frauds, scams, financial exploitation, and financial literacy. So you can check any of those out, and then also our contact information. One more time, 1-800-222-4444, option 2 to get a hold of us. Okay, and now I'm going to check in this chat and take questions. Okay, so Sean asked, how many credit cards should I have? And this is really going to depend on your financial situation. There's no, I would say having 15 credit cards that you only use, most of them just once or twice for purchases, and you're just trying to spread them out so you get use out of 15 credit cards. That's probably a lot. Sticking to maybe 3 or 4, depending on your financial situation. If you're in a pretty good financial situation, just to keep that credit utilization that we talked about, the amount that you're using your credit card down to that 30% level, that might be good. Splitting those purchases putting those large purchases on different cards. Also, depending on the type of reward that you get back, you might want either more or less credit cards based on if you put a large amount of money on one card, they give you, 3% cash back versus another that only gives you 1% cash back or gives you points or something like that. So it really depends on your financial situation. 1 is a good place to start. And then, working your way up from there. You definitely do want to have 1 credit card at least, because you want to, be building that credit score and be able to get loans if you need them in the future. Yeah, I would say 1 is a good place to start. Work your way up from there. Would not go over. I think 5 is probably the best amount. I wouldn't go over probably 5 personally, just because I have trouble. I'm pretty scatterbrained, and I have trouble remembering where all my physical cards are. So it works better to have less, just so I can remember, and then also be using those cards, because not using those cards can also damage your credit score as well. And just one more thing about how many credit cards you should have. You don't want to open a ton of credit cards at once and then close them. That also will harm your credit score. You want to have, a few cards open for a long amount of time, and then if they're not working out for you, close them down and get new accounts. But you don't want to make those switchovers all the time, because that is a red sign to creditors. And then the last question, and if you have any more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. The last one I see right now is, what are the investment apps that I should use? So again, there's so many different options for investing online. The 2 that I've heard the most about are Ally Invest and Robinhood, and those allow you to take a little bit of money and put them into various different investment accounts. You can literally go onto the app and pick what stock you want to be invested in. And the platform makes it really easy to also learn about what your investments look like, where they're going, what their trajectory is, as well as both of them give you various financial literacy tips. And they're double password protected, so you have to, you log into the app, and then you have to log into the app again with a passcode and then your username and password. So I feel, pretty confident in their safety. And they're also regulated and protected by the FDIC. So we don't see that with peer-to-peer financial transfer apps when we're, paying our friends via Venmo or Zelle or whatever, but we do see this on these investment apps that are that actually do have protections. So I would say Ally Invest or Robinhood are probably going to be the 2 that I would recommend right now. Again, there's tons of them. Please do your own research because everything is going to work a little bit differently for everyone. But again, there is a presentation all about the different types of investment apps and finances of the future in general that you can check out as well if you want more information on that. And if no one else has any other questions, that concludes our event for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.